They thought it was just an old house. 3 bedrooms, white siding peeling off in curls. A tired little place on a corner lot in a quiet Kansas town. They moved in with a crib, a box of toys, and plans for a new normal life. But the house had already chosen them. First, it was small things. Toys moved, cold spots, the sense that someone short was standing just behind you. Then came the scratches, the burning, and the smell of something rotting in a home that had just been cleaned. And always the feeling that a little girl was watching from the dark. Tonight, we're going to Atchison, Kansas, to a house that doesn't just have a ghost story. It has an obsession. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to That Haunted Show, and today we're diving in to the Sallie House. Every town has a ghost story, but some properties earn a reputation that goes way beyond campfire tales. With police records, medical reports, with terrified families who swear they will never set foot inside again. If you're listening with the lights off, you might want to turn one on, because tonight, we're stepping into what many call one of the most haunted houses in America. The Sallie House of Kansas. We'll walk through the house's history, the legends surrounding a little girl named Sallie, the couple who moved in and quickly realized they were not alone, the physical attacks that left real marks, and the investigators who tried to understand what was hiding in the walls. Let's start where all these stories do, with a normal house, and the first hint that something is very, very wrong. Atchison, Kansas looks like the kind of town where hauntings should just be stories. Tree-lined streets, old brick buildings, a main street that could be a postcard. On one of those streets sits a 1.5-story home, built in the early 1900s. Nothing about it screams portal to hell. It's the kind of place you could drive past 100 times and never notice a thing. But locals know that address very well. They know the stories, and for a long time, they whispered about one particular family that used to live there. A doctor, his office on the first floor, his living quarters above. That's where the legend of Sallie really begins. The story goes like this. Sometime in the early 20th century, a frantic mother rushed her little girl to the doctor who lived in that house. The child was in agony, clutching her side. The doctor suspected appendicitis, panicked that the appendix might explode. He decided to operate immediately. According to the legend, he began surgery before the anesthesia fully took effect, or, in some versions, without any anesthesia at all. The little girl, Sallie, woke up on the table. Imagine that moment. You're 6 years old, maybe 7. There's a bright light overhead, the smell of chemicals in your nose, hands holding you down. You feel the cold metal of a scalpel cutting into you. You open your mouth to scream, and nobody stops. The story says Sallie died on that table, and her anger stayed in the house. Now, how much of that legend is factual is up for debate, and historians have struggled to find documented medical records that match the exact story. Some doubt the details. Some doubt the entire surgery tale. But whatever really happened in that house, it's clear that something stayed behind. It wasn't content to watch quietly. Fast forward to the early 1990s. A young couple, let's call them Tony and Deborah, move into the house on Osborne Street with their baby. They're not paranormal investigators. They're not thrill seekers. They're just looking for an affordable home in a small town. The house is older, sure. It needs some work, but it has charm. Hardwood floors, a little yard, but enough space for a nursery. At first, life in the house is normal. Unpacking boxes, painting walls, planning for the future. But then small things begin to happen. Toys left in one room will be found in another. Batteries drain faster than they should. Lights flicker, not constantly, just enough to be annoying. The baby's nursery becomes strangely cold, even when the rest of the house is warm. A cold that settles in the bones, not the kind a thermostat can fix. Deborah starts to feel like someone is in the room with her while she's rocking the baby. A presence low to the ground, under her line of sight. When she glances down, she sometimes thinks she sees movement out of the corner of her eye. A small hand, a shadow, something. She brushes it off. Stress, lack of sleep, old house, they all make weird noises. But something about the nursery doesn't feel right. The family's dog refuses to enter the room. He'll stand by the doorway, hackles raised, teeth bared, growling at something only he can see. That's when ignoring it becomes harder. Animals don't care about ghost stories. They react to something. Still, Deborah convinces herself they're just settling in. But deep down, the house has planted its first seed of fear. One night, after a series of odd experiences, Deborah starts talking about the house with a friend. The friend casually mentions a rumor. That place? Isn't that where the little girl died? Sallie, or something? The name lodges in Deborah's mind like a splinter. She starts to talk to the unseen presence, not in a dramatic way, just under her breath, when she feels watched. "If you're here, Sallie," she says in the nursery, "we're here, not here to hurt you. We just want to live here. You're safe." From that point on, strange activity seems to focus more on the baby's room. Toys turn on by themselves. A stuffed animal falls from a shelf. Over and over. Even after being placed securely up on the shelf. Deborah begins to feel an emotional pull. The idea of a frightened, lost little girl stuck in this house tugs at her maternal instincts. She leaves out the toys for Sallie, talks to her as if she were just another child in the home. And for a while, the activity in the house feels almost playful. Small footsteps on the stairs, the feeling of a small hand brushing against her arm, the sense of being followed by a child, curious about everything she does. Deborah comes to believe that Sallie is a lonely, frightened spirit, one that needs comfort, not fear. But Tony has a different experience. Where Deborah feels watched, he feels targeted. Where she feels curiosity, he feels hostility. Deborah's sympathy for the little girl grows. Tony's resentment grows with it. The house, it seems to have picked its favorite, and it's also picked its enemy. One afternoon, Tony is home alone. He's walking through the house when he suddenly feels a sharp, searing pain across his torso. Not a bump, not a random ache, a burning scratch. He rushes to the bathroom, lifts his shirt, and sees 3 long, red marks clawed across his chest. They're raised, angry, and fresh. There is no one else in the house. No child. No animal. Nothing that should have left those marks. When he shows Deborah, she's shaken, but part of her still wants to believe this is just a misunderstanding. She suggests maybe he scratched himself without realizing it. Maybe he brushed against something. But the scratches, they kept coming back. Sometimes on his chest, sometimes on his back, sometimes on his arms. They appear while he's sleeping. They appear while he's awake. They appear in places he physically can't reach on his own. The attacks always seem to target Tony. Deborah, meanwhile, continues to feel drawn to the house's childlike presence. She defends Sallie, insisting that that little girl wouldn't do something like that. If the spirit is a child, she argues, maybe she's just scared of men. Maybe Tony reminds her of the doctor. Maybe the scratches are a sort of warning, not an assault. But as the attacks intensify, that explanation gets harder to accept, because the scratches are only the part of it. Lights now flicker violently, not gently. Objects are thrown. The air in certain parts of the house feels thick and oppressive, like walking through water. There are sudden smells, rotting meat, sulfur, decay. The baby monitor picks up strange interference, static, that sounds, just for a second, like a child whispering. Tony wakes up one night to the sound of a growl inches from his face, yet there is nothing in the room. He begins to dread being in the house at all. He starts to ask a question that many people in the haunted homes eventually ask themselves. If this is a little girl, why does it feel so much worse? In the paranormal world, there's a disturbing theory. Not every entity that appears as a child is a child. Some investigators believe that darker entities, call them demons, inhuman spirits, or simply something malevolent, can present themselves as something harmless to gain trust. A little boy, a lost girl, a crying baby. Think about it. If you walked into a house and saw the ghost of a towering, shadowy figure with horns, you'd run. But a little girl in an old-fashioned dress, clutching a doll, you might feel protective. You might reach out. In the Sallie House, this theory comes up again and again. Deborah's experiences are soft, emotional, maternal. She feels sadness, loneliness, the urge to comfort. She even decorates for Sallie, leaving toys out and talking to her as if she's still alive. Tony, on the other hand, gets the violence, the scratches, growls, the overwhelming rage. It's almost as if the house has split personalities. But what if that's the point? Cultivating trust on one side, feeding on fear on the other. Psychologically, it also makes sense. In many accounts, women in the house report feeling more empathy, more communication, more gentle experiences. Men report being intimidated or attacked. If Sallie was really a young girl who died on an operating table, maybe she projects her anger onto male authority figures. Or maybe something else is wearing that girl as a mask. Either way, both perspectives, Deborah's compassion and Tony's terror, become part of the story. And as the tension in their marriage rises, so does the activity in the house. You can only live in denial for so long. And the couple starts documenting what's happening. They take photos of the scratches, record strange audio, keep a log of most events. Some nights, the baby wakes up screaming at nothing visible. The couple finds the child standing in the crib, staring at a specific corner of the room. Always the same corner. Electronic devices malfunction. Batteries drain in minutes. The TV turns on by itself. A lamp in the baby's room flickers when it's unplugged. The couple begins to fight more. They're tired, stressed, and living in a constant state of hyper-awareness. Every creak, every draft, every flicker feels like a message. They consider moving, but moving is expensive, and they've invested in this house. So, instead, they reach out for help. The Sallie House eventually draws the attention of the paranormal community. Investigators come in with cameras, audio recorders, EMF meters, and the one thing they all secretly hope to find: evidence. Teams set up in the living room, the stairwell, and the nursery. They ask questions into the darkness.
Is there someone here with us? Are you Sallie? Did something happen to you in this house?
On playback, some investigators claim they capture EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, faint answers that weren't heard in real time. A small voice, a giggle, perhaps a whisper. Sometimes it sounds like Sallie. Sometimes it sounds like something else entirely. Cameras catches strange anomalies, moving shadows, unexplained light streaks, objects shifting with no visible cause. In one investigation, a flashlight sitting on the floor reportedly turns on in response to questions. But it's not just quiet responses. On more than one occasion, guests in the house report being scratched, just like Tony. Others feel sick in certain rooms, overcome with sudden nausea or dizziness that disappears the moment they step outside. Some investigators believe the house has multiple spirits: a little girl, possibly other former residents, and something darker lurking underneath. Others are convinced it's a single powerful, manipulative entity. Whatever is in that house, it thrives on attention, and now it has a lot of it. The Sallie House doesn't sit abandoned. Over the years, its reputation has grown. It's been featured on television, in documentaries, in books. Paranormal enthusiasts travel to Atchison just to see it. In some periods, the house has been available for tours and overnight investigations. People book time in the house, hoping to capture their own evidence, or just to say they survived a night inside. Some come out with stories, being touched by unseen hands, feeling a childlike figure, presence, sit on the bed. Lights flickering in response to their questions. Sudden, inexplicable scratches appearing on their skin. Others leave skeptical, experiencing nothing at all. And that's the way hauntings often work. They're not carnival rides. They don't run on a schedule. Whatever is in that house seems to decide who it shows itself to and how far it's willing to go. But even for those who've never set foot inside, the idea of the Sallie House sticks. Because the core of the story isn't just about a haunted house. It's about trust, about how easily we let our guard down when we think we're dealing with something innocent. A lost child, a sad little girl, someone we're sure would never hurt us, right up until the scratches start. Let's step back for a second and look at the possible rational explanations. Old houses are noisy. Wood expands and contracts. Pipes knock. Electrical systems flicker, especially in older wiring. Cold spots can be caused by poor insulation or drafts from just a window being opened or some chimneys. Sleep deprivation and stress can play tricks on the mind. When you expect something to be haunted, you're more likely to interpret normal events as paranormal. Scratches. They can come from allergies, scratching in your sleep, contact dermatitis, even certain medical conditions that cause skin wilts. And when you share your home with pets, kids, and clutter, there are a lot of opportunities to get scratched without remembering how it happened. Those are all valid points, and skeptics lean on them heavily when discussing places like the Sallie House. But here's the problem. When you add up the sheer number of experiences from different people across different times, many of them describing similar events, it gets harder to wave everything away as random. You have the original family describing consistent targeted attacks on the husband. You have visitors and investigators, some of whom arrive as skeptics walking away with fresh marks or intense emotional reactions. You have mechanical failures and recorded anomalies that don't fit neatly into old house explanations. Could it all be a coincidence? The expectation and suggestion, maybe. Or maybe some houses remember. There are a lot of haunted house stories out there. So, why does the Sallie House stand out? Part of it is the child. We're wired to protect children. When we hear about a little girl dying on an operating table, terrified and helpless, something instinctive kicks in. We want to comfort, to fix, to make it right. That's the emotional hook that pulls people into the story. But then the story twists. The child isn't just a victim. She's whatever, wearing a face that becomes an aggressor. The scratches are real. The fear is real. The contradiction. That contradiction, innocence mixed with cruelty, hits on a primal level. The Sallie House also plays on another fear. The fear of your own home turning against you. We think of a home as a sanctuary, a place where we're safe from the world. When your home becomes the threat, you have nowhere to retreat. You can leave the movie theater. You can log off of That Haunted Show. You can put down the book. But you can't escape your bedroom at 3 a.m. when something unseen sits on the edge of your bed. The Sallie House story isn't just about ghosts. It's about the betrayal of that safe space. About what happens when the place that should protect you becomes the thing you're afraid of. And it forces us to ask, if this could happen to a completely normal family, in a completely normal house, in a quiet Kansas neighborhood, how safe are any of us really? Imagine for a moment that you're the one who moved into that little white house on Osborne Street. You hear the stories after you've already signed the lease. You start noticing strange things. Your child wakes up screaming. Your partner has scratches that can't be explained. You can't shake the feeling that someone is standing in the doorway watching you just beyond the edge of the light. Do you stay? Do you write it off as stress and imagination? Do you dig and then confront whatever's there? Do you pack your things and walk away from the mortgage, the investment, the plan for your future? Every person listening to this has a different threshold. Some of you would be gone at the first unexplained cold spot. Others would stay through years of activity just to prove you're not scared. But the Sallie House asks a different question. What if the house is more patient than you are? What if it can wait you out? Wait until you're tired, until you're vulnerable, until your guard is down, until the scratching on the wall becomes just another sound you've learned to live with. Sometimes, the most dangerous hauntings aren't the ones that scream for attention. They're the ones that slowly, quietly convince you that what you're living with is normal, until it's not. Thank you guys so much for joining us in this episode of That Haunted Show. I had a really good time doing research on the Sallie House for this episode. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much. And if you're listening over on Spotify, please give us a 5-star review. It really, really helps us out. And if you're over on Facebook, thank you so much. And if you're over on YouTube, thank you so much. Subscribe, leave a comment below what you think. And if you've had any experiences or heard stories about the Sallie House. That's going to do it for tonight. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.